Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride. And we're going to jump right into this thing. We want to thank our sponsors, first of all, Design Metal Art, one of them on board. Also want to remind everybody, although it's not around Knoxville, the guys that were here a couple weeks ago with the gun show, they are back at it again this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in West Liberty, Iowa. And I only tell you that to remind you that they're coming back to the area. They're going to be in Osceola the first weekend in December. We'll have more information about that when we come along here. But it is rainy / thunder / stuff we haven't seen for a while. We are recording this at Bertrand Monument and just want to invite everybody to pay attention, because if we lose electricity, we're off and we never know if we're coming back. So our guest, we're going to get right to it right now, is this gentleman right here, Dylan Morse. And I don't know how to introduce you, because I have my Design Metal Art hat on. You don't wear a hat, but you have many hats.
Yeah, that could be said.
Council member, to start off with. How many years you been doing that?
I think seven. Yeah, I'm in my second full term,
Okay.
and then I was appointed originally to fill out the remaining few months of a prior council member's term. So I think I'm at 7.
So you got to run next year?
Next December, my term will be up.
Okay.
Yep. So,
Going to do it again?
I don't
Too
know.
soon to tell?
Yeah, too soon to tell. We'll
Are
see.
you happy with the way things have been going since you've been in for 7 years?
I am. Yeah, I think on the whole, and it's not been perfect. I mean, there's never perfect. But I think on the whole, we've really moved the needle in a lot of really positive directions on a lot of really positive fronts. I mean, in terms of employment, supporting local employers and
Right.
businesses and things like that, helping them grow and prosper where it's appropriate for the city to be involved in things like that. Infrastructure, redevelopment, things we've done with downtown, things we've partnered with Marion County on, with the VA and things like that. There's just been a lot of things that have been kind of in the works or leading up to for a lot of years, particularly with the VA, that we're now sort of seeing flesh themselves out, which is really cool.
We've
Really
had
fun to be
Mayor
part of.
Hatch on the show. We've had City Manager Ustry on the
Yeah.
show. You're on the show, and we talk about the planning, the house planning, what we'd like to see for businesses, what we'd like to see come next, da-da-da-da-da. And it was always this, and this, COVID, this, and this.
Right.
And you were right smack dab in the middle of that as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you were, so your 7 years, your third year basically was COVID.
Yep.
Congratulations, here what it is. By the way, we're not going to meet face to face. We're going
Yeah.
to do video conferencing,
Yep.
which I know this show does video.
Yeah.
All right, it's not conferencing though. If we're doing deals, I like to be face to face.
Yeah.
All right. How tough was that, doing the Zoom calls and everything else?
Some things it was more difficult for than others.
Right.
I won't say that it was terrible from a city council perspective. Obviously it was more difficult for public engagement and things like that. I mean, people could Zoom in and whatnot, but if you were having technical difficulties, your computer didn't have a microphone, something like that, it was hard in that capacity to hear directly from people.
Right.
On the banking side of things, we tried to make it work as best we could. A lot of email, a lot of phone calls. We implemented e-signatures and things like that we hadn't done before. But it was like, okay, we've had that on the to-do list, and now it's time to do it. So we made our way through it. Again, hindsight 2020. Was it all perfect? Probably not, but we made it through. So
I've got to say, and I haven't said this out loud, and I'll probably get in trouble and crucified for this, and it's hard to compare our population to your larger populations, but Knoxville as a whole, and I've said this before, Knoxville's the old, I can kick my dog, but you can't kick my dog. We bounce back and persevere. This is what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
better than any community that I can tell you.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to catch flack for that from across the river or wherever, but the bottom line is we were one of the first ones to go back to school after COVID. We were one of the first ones to open up businesses. We couldn't wait to open up businesses.
Right.
And a few of them broke the rules and
Yeah.
said, the heck with it, we're going to open back up anyway. And we weren't headhunting
Right.
to shut things down.
Right.
COVID was kind of a controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Everybody had their opinion. Everybody
Yep.
had their stance.
Yep.
From the city side of it, from your position, excuse me, you didn't really run into any problems like that. The planning, the VA stuff, the housing stuff, kind of break check, if you will, but still happened. it
Yeah.
still went forward.
Yeah, right. I think yeah, if you're looking for kind of the silver lining or sort of the character test, I guess, of a community, that's probably a good one. To my knowledge, at least, and at that point, I was really kind of ramping up into commercial lending within my role at the bank. Nobody that we dealt with at that time, we didn't lose any businesses
Right.
during COVID as a community. Which I think was great. We actually opened businesses
Mm-hmm.
during COVID as a community.
Excuse me.
Had some building projects happening on the square. All of those things kind of continued to happen. Was there an interruption in progress for businesses, for the city, for just community life in general? Absolutely. If you had to pick, is this the best time to start a brand new housing development? Maybe not. I mean,
Right.
we've talked about that in council meetings, publicly before.
But it's
I'm not
working
saying-
out.
It's working out.
Right.
It's working out. It's going great. We've sold another several lots. We're kind of in that pre-closing period with a few more. So it's moving right along. Nobody knew in the beginning what this was going to look like, how long it was going to take. Is this a 10-year build out? Is this a
Right.
50-year build out? What do we know? And man, it just started going gangbusters, kind of right out of the chute.
You mentioned the banking. Let's jump into that because when you're a Knoxville hometown kid.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a transplant.
Yeah.
You know the area. You come back in. One of the first things you took on, and we've talked about this, was the Grand Theater.
Yeah.
And then you jumped over to insurance.
Yep.
Okay, which I went, wow, that's a pretty big move there. We went from not for profit.
Yep.
Rebuild,
Yep.
an excellent rebuild, I might add too. I'm so glad we have a theater.
It came together well. Yep. We've got a lot to be proud of.
Jump into insurance, which is that what you wanted to do? Was your plans to be in insurance?
That was what brought me back to town.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from UNI, kind of in the depths of the recession at that point, 08, 09. Finished out my lease. I was working full time at that point. Had graduated a few months prior. And reached out to Megan McKay at McKay Insurance and said, hey, you guys do business all over the place. You've got a successful business there in town. I'm thinking of moving back to the community, or at least moving back to the area.
Right.
And do you know anybody I should talk to? And she said, you should come talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And I was at McKay's for, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, something like that, and dealt, again, primarily in commercial insurance, so kind of getting my foot in the door with some of the local business owners and contractors, operators, things like that.
Of course they wanted you because they didn't want you going out and being competition. Of course they
Yeah,
wouldn't invite you in.
I'm sure
thinking
that
about
was
it,
that was the thinking. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I would have done.
Right. Yeah, but no, and it was discussed kind of in the interview phase and in those early conversations. If you're going to be here, you're going to be here. You're going to be
Right.
a part of the community. You're going to reinvest in the community because that's what we do. That's what people expect of a local business, and it's what we expect of our employees, and all of that, which was great. I totally bit on that.
Sure.
And probably too much. So actually, but no. From there, I mean, we did movies in the park. We had all of that kind of thing. I was helping with the chamber, helping alumni here and there as needed, and then the theater shut down.
Right.
The company from Des Moines that owned it decided that they were no longer going to operate theaters with fewer than 3 screens, and they weren't going to build any new theaters with fewer than 5 screens. So we were just out in the cold.
Here you are.
And gonna shut it down, let it sit there, and try to sell it as a shuttered business, which, heads up, doesn't work.
Right.
And so,
For any business, not
for
just
any
theater,
business,
yeah.
yeah. So had little, if any, success with that. We started conversations with them at that time and said, hey, if we had a nonprofit, we've seen you do this in other communities.
Sure.
If we have a nonprofit, will you donate the building
Right.
and claim the tax deduction? And they said, yep, we can do that.
This was a big enough organization that can do stuff like that.
Yeah,
you,
yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Des Moines Company, but there was a larger committee.
Yeah.
Doing that
Mm-hmm.
and taking that on, everybody said, oh, you got a turnkey operation on that theater. No, you didn't, because
No.
everything was outdated in there as far as the equipment, right?
Yeah. The big thing was, they were still operating film projectors, and the movie studios were, at that point or in the years, immediately following, were saying we're not printing film anymore. It's all going to be digital. It's going
Right.
to come on a hard drive, or it's going to, now they just beam it in,
Right.
over satellite and.
You're showing your age there.
Ethernet
Star
and things
Trek
like that.
being in.
But yeah, so first and foremost, obviously, if we want to have a theater going forward, we
Right.
need to upgrade to digital projection, which in and of itself I think was $150,000 or something like that. The company that deals in that world that sold us, the equipment, continues to service it and things like that, said, we're not going to install it in this building with this electrical system. Folks that helped out at the time, with demolition and, rebuilding
The
and things like
two-wire
that.
electrical system with probably cloth wrapping on it, I'm guessing.
Oh, I mean, it was like Frankenstein.
Right, right.
Shut
I don't know
down.
what that movie was where
Yeah.
they grab it and they go,
Exactly. A wince
Yeah,
as you do it.
yeah.
So it was that. We went in there and, shut off every light switch in the building, flipped every breaker we could think to flip, and there's still a light just dangling on in the back of the building. Like, what is happening here?
Right.
It had been through so many different iterations of, theater design and technology and all of that kind of a thing that, it was all still there. And I don't blame anybody for that.
No.
You can't shut down for months at a time as a for-profit ongoing business, whether it's, Fridley Theaters or Carl Schwanebeck
Right.
or anybody. You can't, most people can't do that. So I certainly don't blame them for that. But
I'm old enough to remember when Carl cut the downstairs in half and started
Yeah.
Video Mart.
Yeah, yep,
Video Mart.
yep.
So that theater's been through several changes
Yeah.
during Carl's time, before
Yep.
Carl's time, or
Yep.
whatever you want to talk about it.
Yep.
Fast forward, how did you get into banking?
So that's what I went to school for. Actually.
That is actually what you-
That's what I went to school for.
I didn't know
yeah.
you went to UNI.
I went to
I did
UNI.
not know that.
Yep.
There's a kitchen south of the Dome. Jay's Kitchen, is that the name of that one? The
Oh,
Panther
yeah.
Omelet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
J's or BJ's or something like
Yeah.
RJ's.
It's all, the whole building's purple.
Yeah, right there
Yeah.
on Hudson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good
I see,
breakfast.
I get around a little bit. So.
Yeah, exactly. But no, financial management and economics.
Okay.
Was what I went to school
See,
for.
I didn't know that. I thought,
Yep.
okay, how do you
Yep.
go into banking business? So,
I'm just
what was your position at the
fun.
bank when you went there? First one.
when I first went there, I interviewed with Stu Job originally.
Saw Stu a couple weeks ago. He's at the gun show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
So talked with Stu originally, and it was like, we really don't have anything for you or for anybody at the moment. We're just not hiring. We're kind of staffed up.
so janitorial is where it was.
Janitorial. Yep. I'll get coffee.
Yeah.
I'll do what I need to do.
Right.
But he's like, yeah, it's good to have the conversation, and let's just keep in touch and things like that. And I don't know what amount of time passed, but it was like, maybe we need to look at this from a different angle, and it's a little bit almost succession planning and things like that, where, we don't necessarily have an opening right now, but we know so-and-so is getting ready to move to be closer to family. We know so-and-so is going to retire in the next several years. We know this, that, whatever.
Right.
So originally when I came to the bank, it was sort of a hybrid role. I was doing a little bit of new accounts. I was doing a little bit of consumer lending, personal loans, and things like that. I was helping a little bit with IT. I was helping with compliance and BSA and things like that. So it was a little bit all over the place. And gradually that sort of winnowed over the years. And then when we merged with Marion County Bank in 2019 and 2020,
COVID.
that too, it was like, okay, let's narrow this focus a little bit so that you can be, sort of a master of,
What you
one
do.
instead of a jack of all trades, kind of thing. And so I've been primarily in commercial lending since then.
One of the things you had to deal with when you went in that position, because you also did it with me when I had my businesses going with the newspapers, is I can't remember the name of it. It was a government thing where they helped out.
PPP. PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. For you.
For everyone.
Yeah,
for everyone.
you.
Yeah.
But where I'm going at is that you made it simple, because we got something in the mail or via email where it was that go to your banker, this is how we're going to save you, do payroll, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, Dylan,
How does this happen?
how does this happen?
Yeah,
How does this
yeah,
work? And you went,
right.
I don't know, but I'll get right back to you. And
Yeah.
it was like a day later.
Yeah.
You had to, I don't know what you did, study, made phone calls, whatever it
Yep,
was. But
yep.
I know I was one of the first ones in there. There were several more after that
Yep.
that it helped out. As it turned out, they forgave that part
Yep.
of it. What was that like? I mean, I know what it was like when I brought my business to you, and I was a small business, but what was it like when you started dealing with multiple businesses that had more than 5 employees?
Yeah, no, it was pretty intense. I mean, not only did you have kind of the cloud hanging over you of what's going to happen broadly, you know, what does life look like in general going forward, with everything that we knew and didn't know and all of that. But you had this big new government program and this other big new government program, you know, the EIDL program, EIDL. And several others. You know, there were programs for bars and restaurants and this and that and whatever. And it was literally, you know, the government, banks, everybody flying the plane as we were learning to fly the plane and, you know, building the plane as we're, you know, it was messy.
Does that get scary as a community bank, though, when the federal government is saying, yeah, go ahead and just give them your money, we'll take care of it?
It was different.
Yeah.
It was different for sure. But you know, as time went on, you know, I mean, and we'd get emails periodically throughout the day, sometimes within the same day. Oh, that one that we sent you at 9 o'clock this morning. Don't pay any attention to that. 3 o'clock's the one you need to pay attention to now.
Oh, wow.
You know, or Mondays is different than Thursdays, and you know, on and on and on. I mean, they were changing the rules that quickly. Because you came across all different kinds of situations that,
Sure.
you know, oh, we didn't think about that. Yeah, how do we manage that in the right way? And so the SBA would push out new regs and SOPs and things from there. So
I think one of the things I told you the day that you helped out with that PPP was this is why I stayed during the merger. Because during the merger, there were several people that was in panic mode of, we've got a Pella Bank coming to town. It's going to be all Pella.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
I stuck it out too
Yeah.
because I believed in community banks, and that's
Yeah.
hard to come by.
yeah,
All right. That reason, amongst many other reasons, is why I still am with a community bank.
same.
You know, community bank, I don't think people realize the definition of community. They only think bank.
Right.
When I think community bank, besides being able to bother you 24/7, is the fact that you are involved and give back to the community.
Right.
I mean, what ways? I know the school, you guys got a great program going with the school. What other ways are you guys doing with the bank business and the community?
Oh man, I mean, we talked about at staff meeting this morning. I mean, we're doing another what we call the blessing box, partnering with Helping Hands. We want to try and put together 200 Thanksgiving meals, just among bank staff. Try and put together 200 Thanksgiving meals for Helping Hands and the folks that utilize their programs. You know, sponsoring Little League teams, sponsoring, you know, events here, there, and everywhere. Girls' Night Out. We've still got pink ribbons up all behind the teller line,
Right.
you know, from Girls' Night Out a few weeks ago downtown, partnering with the hospital. I think it was last year, $75,000 donation to Stepping Stones Early Learning Center, $75,000 donation to the Knoxville Hospital for the infusion center and specialty clinics and ER renovation and all the great things that they've got going on. We do what we call the report card program. So for those that aren't in banking, that aren't familiar with it, anytime you use your debit card,
Right.
Anywhere, you swipe your card, there's a little bit of a transfer fee there, and that gets filtered out to Visa or MasterCard or whoever, and you know that's how they make their money.
Sure.
In part, banks get a little bit of a piece of that too, fraction of a penny here and there, you know, depending on the size of the transaction. So there's a little bit of transfer fee income that comes in from the debit card, you know, program,
Right.
debit card portfolio across the bank. We set aside a portion of that debit card fee income, and folks can log on to Marion County Bank's website and pick the school that they want their fee income to
Right.
flow to. So over the life of the program, I'm gonna fudge on the numbers here, but it's right around $500,000 over the last, you know, approaching 20 years.
In this community. As in county?
Primarily
Twin Cedars, Melcher,
yeah.
primarily Knoxville.
Yeah, primarily the Marion County area, but I mean, it goes over into Mahaska County. We've got PCM. We've got, you know, folks that want to steer those dollars where they can. So not every school gets, you know, what a Pella or a Knoxville gets as far as a check, but everybody gets a little piece of it, and doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't
Better
cost
than nothing.
the debit card holder anything. So it's just kind of a bank. Here you go, which is phenomenal. That's
Were
a
you
great thing.
were you nervous when the merger happened?
I was. I mean, I'll be totally honest, just because it's, you know, it's unknown.
Right.
You see mergers and acquisitions and things like that, and you think of, you know, here locally, we think of Maytag.
Right.
And, you know, what happened there.
Yep.
And, you know, you see front page of the Wall Street Journal, merger and acquisition. Oh, okay. How long before the layoffs start?
Exactly. 600
And-
people out. Boom.
Yeah, and it's like, man, is this all going to get consolidated? Are we all out of a job? What does this look like? And you know, couldn't be more surprised in some ways. Been a great change for customers, I think, because our rates decreased. We got rid of a bunch of fees. You know, technology. We were right on the cusp of making some technological changes anyway,
Right.
With Iowa State. But then the merger came through, and we upgraded technology. So now we're real time. You know, you can log onto your app and see, oh, yep, there's the deposit that I just made inside a second ago. There's, you know, that transaction from the gas station and da-da-da. You know, it's all right there.
Right.
As opposed to having to wait until close of business. So it's been a lot of really good changes. A lot of really good changes.
You recently got another promotion. Was it that earlier this year or late last year? I've lost track now.
Yeah.
What? Sure.
Something like that.
I'm still doing the same job, and they added more to it. What is the job? You're still in commercial.
Still in commercial.
Right.
Yeah. My primary job function hasn't changed
Right.
really at all. I still get to work with my customers, and that's what I was really concerned about. I wanted to continue working as a lender, just because I like those relationships that I've been able to develop over the last several years. And
Right.
I like what we're able to do as lenders, and you know, helping people and helping the community, you know, at a broader level and things like that. So. Yeah, primarily still a lender, but do a little bit in terms of community outreach, these kinds of things, and you know, as we're building the drive up on Highway 14, you know, talking with media about that, and just being a little bit more forward-facing, public-facing, however you might phrase
Because you have
that.
way too much time on your hands. I understand.
Way
that.
too much. Way too much. Yeah.
You mentioned the drive up, and I gotta go back to this community thing a little
Yeah.
bit, and the merge. And again, I was skeptical. I grew up in Knoxville. You grew up in Knoxville. Panthers don't like the Dutch. Cannons are supposed to be pointing out towards each other, even though the trajectory is if we shoot ours, it hits like Otley.
Oh.
And if they shoot it theirs, it hits down by Martin Marietta or something like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
All right.
we
That's good.
kind of did that one time. But anyway,
Okay.
my point being is one of the statements I made, our old friend Dave Hoke, one of the statements I made to Dave, because we're good friends, I said, I'm not going to Pella.
Yeah.
If I got to do banking, I'm not going to Pella.
Yeah.
You know, it's inconvenience.
Well, yeah.
And that was my fear, that they would come in, you know, like you said, merge together, everybody goes bye-bye, we bring
Yep.
it to Pella.
Yep.
If you don't believe in it now, 4 to 5 years later, go down to the corner of Lincoln and Pleasant and look at that brand new drive up that's going to be opening up here in the next month and a half, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a big investment. That's not cheap change.
That's big. That's
Yeah.
big. Yeah. Anybody that's ever bought, you know, office furniture
Right.
knows how much commercial stuff costs. And that's, you know, doubly so for buying a bank vault and buying a security system and
Well,
bulletproof glass and all of
seriously.
that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not cheap. Yeah. So
I bet if you dug out the books, if they're still around, and found out what the original main bank cost to build, you've passed that and then some on a drive up.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that bank is old. Even
Yeah.
the renovation that just happened a few
Yeah.
years ago. This is a state of the art drive up.
Yeah.
This is probably the nicest drive up I've seen in the area, not just Knoxville, in the area for a long time. I love the way that it sits right there on the corner and sticks out.
Yeah.
I'm all about marketing, so when I'm driving south, the first thing I see is that big Marion County
Marion
Bank.
County Bank, yeah.
Son of a gun.
It's pretty cool.
You know?
It's pretty cool. It's shaping up well.
Yeah.
We've got it. We've got it framed somewhere when Mr. Collins, you know, years and years ago, back in 1903, built the.
How old were you then?
Just got my license.
Yeah.
but built, I think it was the community, what was it, Community Savings Bank building?
I think it was then,
Community
yeah.
something building, yeah.
It was a savings bank. I do remember
Yeah,
that. So
there were I guess there were 3 or 4 banks within that building at one time, and Iowa State Savings Bank was the one that made it through the bank holiday in the Depression.
wasn't it that time period? And I got to do my research now, but where it was a savings and loan and something else, and it was like you said, 4 different type of operations in there. If you wanted savings, it was this one. If you wanted to take out loans, it was this one.
Yeah.
You know.
And agricultural loans was one thing,
Exactly.
and home loans were
Yeah.
another thing. And yeah, it was.
And it was actually a separate business,
Yeah.
though. It wasn't a division. It was separate business
Yeah.
back then. So I seem to remember some history on that. And I wasn't around to remember that it was a savings and loan. I just remember reading books and seeing pictures and whatever.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
some neat archives in this town.
There are.
I go back to not necessarily just on the theater, but you know what's going on in this community.
Mm-hmm.
You pay attention to things. I love it when I run across something that I did not know, that I thought I knew everything about a certain building.
Yeah.
It just happened today, as a matter of fact. I'm
Yeah.
in Larry Fermonic's office getting adjusted. That used to be a Firestone shop.
Yep.
There's 2 buildings right there. And I asked him, I said, because you got to come in the back door now because of the street renovations. I said, your place, Randy and Cheryl Chambers' place, has that ramp. I said, was that for 2-wheel loading types carrying stuff? He says, it was built afterward. He goes, the back of my place was actually a garage. And I did not know that, but that's where they changed the tires that Firestone sold in their store. They had a little mechanic shop back there.
Yeah.
Did not know it. Would love to see some pictures of it if anybody has
Yeah.
some.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
He did tell me a story about a door being written on down the basement of that place. And it was a nickname. Everybody had nicknames back then.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was Ed Rankin's brother or cousin. I can't remember which.
Oh,
but
funny.
all the Rankins,
Yep.
Chicken was a
Yep.
Rankin and Poncho was a Rankin. So
Yep.
it's everybody had nicknames, and they signed the walls or signed the doors, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I'd love to see pictures of that if they had anything inside of a building like that's cool.
There's one up at the theater that's like that too, that we were sure to, put aside and cover
Right.
up and not, get all, splattered with plaster and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's got, 70 years of theater employees' names carved into it because it was in the janitor's closet.
Sure.
It's super cool.
Yeah. Maybe that's what you and I ought to do. Start a show and dig Knoxville or something like that. Start going down in basements. And
I'm game.
yeah,
I'm game.
it'll work out that
Yeah.
way. Or in our case, sometimes upstairs. You never know what's upstairs in some of them downtown
You never
things,
know.
so.
You never know.
We are out of town, my friend. The time runs fast when you just sit here and gossip back and forth.
It did.
It did. I appreciate you. You know that. I appreciate the bank, especially the community part of the bank. Yes, it doesn't say community in the name, but guess what? It's all about community. And as I stated earlier, if that new building on the corner doesn't say they're invested in the community, you got to look up a different book, I guess.
Absolutely. We're really fortunate in this community to have not only Marion County Bank, but I'll plug some of the others as well.
It's your job, not mine.
right? Whether I should or not, I don't know, I guess. But no, we're really fortunate.
Yeah.
People asked us a lot, oh gosh, Peoples is coming to town, Lighton's coming to town. Are you nervous about that? Well, it's going to be competition.
Sure.
So, there's that. But it's also going to be another couple businesses that are, competing for eyeballs and competing to do cool things and competing to help the most and do the biggest, best projects and things like that. So I think it's a good sign for Knoxville as a community, for our future, that, banks want to come here and businesses want to come here and continue to locate here and expand here. I think that's a great thing.
I think it's a great thing, and not bashing any banks, but those banks you mentioned are still that community flavor of a bank. They're a smaller industry, if you will, unopposed to those larger banks we won't mention, Wells Fargo, as they're doing things like that. So it's just one of those things.
Well, I'm not saying anything bad about any bigger banks specifically or anything, but, a downtown project, they don't always fit neatly into the box.
Right.
So, you're going to need somebody that has some extra, not that I'm any big expert in anything, but, somebody that can deviate, can do what needs to be done in order to make things happen. And community banks are it.
One of the best things about Marion County Bank, and I'll tell you straight up, and if it ever changes, I don't know if I'll change banks, but I'll be very upset, is when I call there, I talk to a person the very first thing.
Yeah.
A real person answers. Don't push 1 for so-and-so. Don't push 2 for so-and-so.
I hate that.
I do too. We'll talk about City Hall later.
Oh.
We got to wrap it up.
Oh.
I had to hook you a little bit.
You
just
did.
now. All right. All right. Hey, I appreciate you, sir.
Appreciate you.
That's
Thank you.
going to wrap it up for this edition of Try Knoxville. We want to invite everybody to come in and tune in. Make sure you share. I forgot to do this last week, so I got to do it this week. Make sure you share. Get the camera right angle there. If you share and like us on Facebook, we are going to put you in a drawing. Again, I didn't do it last week, so we don't have any names. But next week we'll have a name, and you'll get one of these tumblers. It has our logo on it. It has Design Metal Art logo, our sponsor, on it. Or if you want to pay the extra, you can put your logo in its place. But, keep this one at least. Again, that wraps it up for this show. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time.